Alright, so now we're going to be looking at factoring trinomials where the leading coefficient is not 1.
Alright, so remember what we said before in our last video. How do we get the first term here? Well, it's the first term inside this binomial times the first term in this binomial. So first times first. How do we get the last? Well, that's last times last. And how do I get the middle term? Well, that's my inners plus my outers. Alright? But now, a is not going to be 1. Therefore, we're not just looking at putting x and x. We have to take into consideration the factors of a. So that adds a couple more variables to the situation and a couple more things we have to look at. Alright, so what are the factors of 2x? Well, the factors of x squared are x times x, right? And what are the factors of 2? Well, the factors of 2 are just 2 times 1. So this one's not so bad, only because our number here is prime. What are the factors of 2? Again, 2 and 1. So we just have to decide. We need to put a 2x somewhere and a 1x somewhere. So let's put the 2x here and the 1x here. Okay? Now we have to decide where this 2 and this 1 goes. Does the 2 go here and the 1 go here? Or does the 1 go here and the 2 go here? This is the part where there's more options and we have to weigh all the options. Alright, so this is one possibility of how I could have factored it. I put the 2x in the x and then the 2 in the 1, which came from this guy. Alright? Now, does this work? Now, of course, you can multiply back out and check, but there's other ways to check to see if this works. Okay? Now, something that should stick out in your brain is that I always want prime factors. Prime factors. Like x and 1 have nothing in common. Okay? But over here, 2x and 2, there's a GCF there, right? Which means that I did not factor this correctly, and I need to try again. Okay? So we need to switch the 2 and the 1 around. Alright, so I switch the 2 and the 1 around, and let's see if this comes out fine. That'll give me 1x. This gives me 4x. And when I add them together, I get 5x. Ooh, that doesn't look like a 5. I get 5x, which is my inners, so I know that I've done it right. Alright, so another example. I have 7x squared minus 8x minus 12. So I need the factors of 7x squared. Well, that's just going to be 7 times x and then just x. Okay, because remember, 7's prime, so its only factors are 7 and 1. Alright, but what about 12? See, this is where it gets a little bit more difficult because there's many factors of 12. Alright, I have 12 times 1, I have 4 times 3, and I have 6 times 2. So I have a lot of different scenarios to check here. So I'm going to draw my binomials. Alright, I only have one place that the factors of 7x squared could go, so 7x and x. Now, this is where I have to check here. Okay, now remember, my inners plus my outers have to give me my middle term. So I'm looking, I want to do 7 times something, and then something times something to give me negative 8x. Okay? So let's try. Let's think about this guy. 12 times 1. If I put the 12 here, 12 times x is going to be huge. That's going to be too big. Okay? If I put the 12 here and the 1 here, well, that's going to be 12x, 7x. That's going to give me 5x in the middle. That's not big enough. Alright? So that's out. What about 4 and 3? Well, if I put the 4 here, that's going to give me 28. Alright, that's too big. Alright, so what if I put the 3 here? Well, that's going to give me 21. Again, that's too big. Okay, so that guy's out. What about 6 and 2? Well, if I put the 6 here, that's going to be too big. Okay, 42, that's too big. If I put the 2 here, that gives me 12. I'm sorry, can't multiply. That gives me 14, so 7 times 2 gives me 14. And then if I put the 6 here, well, 14 minus 6 gives me 8. So I know that I can try that out. So I'm going to put the 2 here, the 6 here. my inners 6x, my outers 14x. Okay, now remember, we always want to check, does it add or subtract to give me the inside? And it does. If I subtract them, I get my inside. So now time to decide where the signs go. Different signs, biggest product negative. Different signs, biggest product negative. So out of these two, which one is bigger? Well, that's this guy. Now remember, I can't put anything in front of this first term, so the minus sign has to go in front of the 2. And they're different, so I know the other guy is going to be a plus. So positive 6x minus 14x, and adding those together, I get a negative 8x. So hooray, I did it right, and here is my trinomial factored. Whoa, 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 right? Really big numbers. So this time, it's going to be a little trickier, okay? So 24 has lots of factors, so let's go ahead and list the factors of 24. Got 24 and 1, okay? I've got 12 and 2, okay? I've got 8 and 3, all right? I've got 6 and 4, and then that's it, right? That's it. So what about the factors of 12? Well, that's 12 and 1. That is 3 and 4, and that's 6 and 2. So I have lots and lots and lots of choices now. Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit tougher. Alright, so let's go ahead and just make a decision. And let's go ahead and say, let's start out with 6 and 4. Okay, so 6 and 4. You got to start somewhere. This is just guess and check, okay? So 6x and 4x. Let's say I pick that. Well, if I did that, 12 times 1. So let's say I put the 12 here and the 1 here. Well, if I put a 12 here, 4 and 12 have a GCF, so I can't do that. So let's say I put the 12 here and the 1 here. Well, 12 and 6 have a GCF, so I can't do that, which means that is not an option. 12 times 1 is not going to be an option, okay, as long as I have 6x and 4x. What about 3 and 4? Well, again, I get into this scenario. Well, if I put a 4 here or a 4 here, it's not going to work, okay, because both of these numbers are even and I'm going to have a GCF. Same thing, if I put a 2 here and a 2 here, or a 2 here and a 6 here, that's not going to work. I'm going to have a GCF, which means that 6x and 4x are not going to work, okay? So 6x and 4x are not going to be my guys, so I'm going to take those away. Let's try something else, okay? So this guy's out. Let's try 8 and 3. So 8 and 3, if I put the 12 here, that won't work, right? 3 and 12 have a GCF. If I put the 12 here, that won't work. 8 and 12 has a GCF, so I know that's out. What about 3 and 4? Well, if I put the 3 here, can't do that. If I put the 3 here and the 4 here, that's a possibility, so let's just see if that works. If I put the 3 here and the 4 here, well, my inners is going to be 9x. My outers is going to be 32x. Do those add or subtract to give me my middle term? Well, 32 minus 9 is indeed going to give me 23. So it looks like I might have stumbled upon the correct answer. So, looking at my signs here, different signs, biggest negative. So biggest product has to be negative. So that's going to be the 32x. So the negative sign is going to go here. The plus is going to go here. And 8x plus 3, no GCF. 3x minus 4, no GCF. My inners and my outers add up to give me my middle term. So I know that I did this correct. Alrighty, so again, I have a trinomial. Alright, so I want to look at the factors of this guy, the factors of this guy that will add or subtract to give me the middle term. Now I have some pretty big numbers here. 24, again, we know it has a lot of factors. 4, not as many, but still, with combination of 24, that's a lot. So remember. the very first thing that you do anytime you factor is look for a GCF. That has to be the very first thing you do is GCF, okay? So that will make your life so much easier and will give you the right answer versus waiting to the end and then maybe not seeing that you need to factor something out. So GCF here is going to be 4, right? So pulling out a 4, I have x squared minus 5x plus 6, okay? Now, this problem just became so much easier because now the leading coefficient is a 1. And those types of problems are super duper easy compared to when we have other variables or other factors involved. So, leaving the 4 out front, I have my 2 binomials. Factors of x, well that's easy. Factors of x squared are x and x. So now I need the factors of 6. Well, the factors of 6 are 6 and 1 and 3 and 2. Now, which of those will add or subtract to give me 5? Well, remember, same sign, both negative, okay? Same sign, both negative. So, let's try out 3 and 2. When I do 3 and 2, and I do same sign, both negative, that is going to give me negative 3x. That's going to give me negative 2x, and together I get negative 5x, which is my middle term, so I know that I'm correct. Now, this 4 out front is super important. Do not forget him, alright? He is part of the answer, alright? He just hangs out front, but he is part of the answer. Alright, so, last example. How is this guy different than the ones we've looked at already? Okay, hopefully it's sticking out to you like a sore thumb. I have a negative in front, alright? Now, this negative cannot be there, okay? It cannot be there whenever I'm factoring. So I need to get rid of it, okay? So make a little note to yourself. A cannot be negative. Whoa. Holy bad writing, Batman. Okay? A cannot be negative, alright? Now when I'm talking about A, I'm talking about the coefficient of our quadratic term, our A in front of the x squared. So, I have to get rid of the negative. Now, while I'm at it, 4, 22, and 10, well, they all have a GCF, right? I can take out a 2. So not only am I going to take out a 2, I'm going to take out a negative 2 so that I can get rid of that negative in front. So pulling out the negative 2, I have 2x squared, okay, minus 11x plus 5, okay? Be careful here. Make sure you did it right. So just looking back, okay, negative 4x squared, positive 22x, minus 10. So make sure that you did everything correctly. Now, I'm looking at this trinomial, which is a little easier because 2 here is just 2 and 1. 5 is just 5 and 1. So having some prime terms makes things a lot simpler. So I'm going to keep my negative 2 out front. I'm going to write my 2 binomials. So the factors of the first term, the only options are 2x and x. Factors of the last term are just 5 and 1. I just have to decide where they need to go. Now remember, I need to add up to 11 here. So if I were to try to put the 1 here and the 5, the 1 here and the 5 here, well, that's going to give me 2 and 5. That's not big enough. So I need to put the 5 here and the 1 here. Now checking my signs, same sign, both negative. Same sign, both negative. Let's check my inners and my outers. Negative x. This gives me negative 10x. Those give me negative 11x. So hooray, this is it, completely in factored form. This negative 2 is super important. Remember, it has to be there because if I multiplied all of this back through, I need to get what I started with. And without that negative 2, I wouldn't have what I started with. Alright, now give these a try.